Hey guys, this is Brett Young, Taylor Young, and Rod Erb, and you're tuned in to the Be Extraordinary podcast with Erb and Young. Real conversations about business, leadership, and personal development.
And it is a podcast too. We will have questions. We will have time for questions too. So, gentlemen, thank you all for ending a great fall semester.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you, Justin, Sarah. Thank you so much for having us. Go Knights, huh?
Let's do it. All right.
Who's going to the game tonight?
They're like,
Basketball.
what game?
What game?
It's a basketball game tonight.
Well, my name is Brett. This is my brother Taylor. This is my business partner, Rod Erb. We own we're local to the community. We're UCF alumni. Actually, Taylor's calling the game for color commentating tonight for basketball. He's the superstar here, so we get to hang along with him. But we own a property and casualty insurance agency located here in Orlando. We have seven offices all throughout the state, about 44 employees at this point. And we are absolutely just tickled to death to be able to come here and just share and give and answer questions and just pour into you guys because candidly, this brings back a lot of memories and nostalgia just walking through like the halls and remembering all this stuff. And I know I asked you guys who was a senior, who's a junior. So you're probably getting to the end of this cool journey. And I don't know if you're like I was, or I don't know these guys, but I was thinking I have no idea what I'm going to do after this awesome, cool experience over at UCF. And so I'll share with you in a little bit about my story and how that works. And it was a big deal for me to figure out kind of what I wanted to do professionally. And it was a really cool piece of advice that hopefully maybe we'll have some time to have some dialogue on that. But maybe you want to introduce yourself real quick and give you kind of background.
Yeah. So I got to UCF. Brett was before me, but we were local kids, lived on the west side of town in Windermere, and came all the way across to Seminole County. Felt like a long way at the time, but I got here in 2006, played basketball, graduated in 2011, got a minor in business management, but was in health services administration is where I finished. So, and then out of school, just jumped right into entrepreneurship. And just like Brett kind of mentioned, really had no idea what I wanted to do. I always thought I was kind of majoring in basketball, and then all of a sudden you figure that's going to stop. You're not going to play in the NBA. Got a call from my dad and said, hey, you got to get a job at some point, right? And so that's when it got real for me. So, and I just had a lot of curiosity and questions around up into that point, like what skill sets that I had that were valuable in the marketplace that may transfer to something. So I had more questions than answers, and ultimately we joined forces, and we'll tell you a little bit about that in 2011 when we started the business. But yeah, I'll kick it back to you, bud.
Yeah, well, I'm probably the least relatable here because I'm not from Florida. I'm a night lover by osmosis through these guys. My background was I played professional golf for a living. Moved to Florida as a result of that from Michigan. That didn't pan out, and moved into business and was able to live kind of in the medical space for a decade. Got a chance to meet Brett. And I always had a hunger. I learned how to be a good employee, where these guys are very different. They've always worked for themselves through our journey, but I got to learn how to be a good employee and knew that I wanted to do something a little different, maybe have a little bit more stake in the direction I was going. So met Brett and Taylor, got into business for ourselves, and it's been a great journey. And as a result, I've got to get close with these guys and get close to UCF, and We've been basketball ticket holders. We've been football. We are football ticket holders. So we love the university. So we're happy to be here. Thanks.
Super fun. I graduated the year before we got the stadium. Isn't that that's just messed up, man? So I get to come back here, and you guys are spoiled. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, it's great. So why don't we give you kind of a background on how we started the company, how we met. We'll give you an idea of kind of how that looks, try to relate it a little bit to your journey as far as maybe what you're looking for and why we chose the path that we chose and why it was important. And then candidly, I'd love to just have a lot of Q&A and answer some questions that you guys have. We're biased. We have some things that were important to us that I think would be valuable, but again, we're just guessing. And the best way to really, give at this point is to really just have dialogue. I love that sign, by the way, up there. I can't read it from here. It just basically said the best education is when you get free time to hang out with somebody on a log and talk. I think it says something like that. And I feel like that's the coolest moments that I've had in my professional journey, to be able to just talk with somebody who maybe has already done it or is a little bit further along in the process and ask questions of how did you do it and why did you decide this and how did you end up here. So hopefully that's value to you guys, and we can answer maybe some of those questions that you guys have. So, but in 2011, we started Urban Young Insurance today, what is known today. I met Rod 5 years before that. Was in school at UCF, had a hunger to do something entrepreneurial. The reason for that is I wanted the autonomy and the flexibility and the time freedom later in life, but I also wanted to create a path to unlimited. I wanted to be able to get paid off of what I produced on my results. And the idea of building a team and creating some leverage was really important to me, which we can dive into later. So I met Rod through that journey, and we started working in the insurance space with the supplemental benefit product and learned how to deliver value and make a sale. And so that was the process. I think when I was a senior here at UCF, I was working, I had a job, and I was doing trying to finish at school, and then I would do this, and I would work on the weekends and at nights, and I would learn these crafts and these different skill sets that ultimately ended up being the skill sets that have built the company. And so we did that and had a great time, and, didn't really do well financially for a very long time, and learned some skills that ended up being valuable, but at the time felt like we weren't really making a lot of progress. All my friends were out, after school getting different jobs, getting, paid good money. And, I was the broke post-grad college student trying to figure out how to do this thing. And so Taylor had gotten done with school at the time, and he was at an internship, and he tells the day that he got recruited over a Chipotle bowl. He got out of school, and we sat down
without
for lunch.
guac, though.
Without guac. Yeah. And we sat down and said, hey, man, we've got this really cool idea. Rod and I we're going to take the stuff that we learned in this other business and take it and apply it to the property and casualty insurance space. And for those of you that don't know, property and casualty is home, auto, business insurance, any type of situation where you're insuring stuff, or you're insuring a situation where there could be liability surrounding around a trip and fall, or a med mal claim, or some sort of injury. So that's what property and casualty insurance is. And he said, hey, man, I don't know what I want to do. I wasn't necessarily digging this internship, so you know what? I don't know what you guys are doing, but I'm in. And so we started from nothing. We opened our office in Rod's upstairs basement, we called it. It was an extra bedroom. We built out an office, and we started from scratch. And so we didn't have experience, obviously, but we had each other. And I still have really cool old pictures of us in that office, and it's a really special time. But that was a really impactful moment, because I came from kind of I know my perspective. I'd love to hear your guys' perspective, but I came from kind of the nest. I was in a an apartment with a couple guys. We had built these cool relationships. I went to school. It took me 5 years, 5.5 years. I took a great amount of time to enjoy my UCF experience. And all of a sudden, I'm back at home with my mom and dad. I'm in the bedroom that I grew up in. I have my newly married wife, and I'm starting this business with these guys. And I'm going, holy smokes, like this is what I went to school for? Like, I got a degree. Like, I've done all this work. And, is this it? And so those conversations were very prevalent. But what was important is that we had a really good support system, between the three of us. And then ultimately for me, I just knew what the end game was and what the end game wanted to be. And that was just really important to me. So fast forward 3 years later, we were able to finally, make a living wage. And fast forward today, we do $10 million in sales just this past year. We have a significantly thriving business. We have a chance to give back. And so that dream of what was possible when we left, campus, or when I left campus specifically, and, we linked up, has become a reality. And it's been choppy. It's been nothing other than, it's been difficult, but it's been extremely fulfilling along the way, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. And so an opportunity to do that has been really, really cool.
Yeah, man, I just relate a lot too. Getting out of school and having friends, there's that, we act like we don't compare ourselves to other people, but there's certainly that tendency to do that. And for me at that age, 23 years old, you're looking up and out, and you've done this work to get this degree, and I just thought, hey, everyone that gets a degree comes out, you make six figures, and that's the deal, right? And you have immediate success, and it's all good. And what I looked up and out is I had some friends get some jobs. We were starting a business. I wasn't making any money. But I think why that's important is that started to matter less and less, right? You get into the marketplace, and the focal point when you're young specifically, but with really anything new that you're doing, it was a valuable time to just get in something and start to learn skills, right? Like I talk about like what's valuable in the marketplace, like how to one, service a customer, how to sell, right? How to build rapport, how to market, how to take a product and understand a target market, define a need and do all those things. How to lead, right? How to build a team. All these things that in those early years for me, when you're thinking you're not making traction, right? Because maybe the scoreboard doesn't show that you're making traction, but you compound that over years of skills and stacking that for me, the other side of 30 looked much different. And reflecting back on those insecure days getting out of school, it was so less important what that scoreboard read in the beginning, and it was more important about the fit. It was more important about the vehicle. It was more important about kind of, hey, when you look up and out 5, 10, 15 years from now, like have you defined like an idea of what you want your day to look like, right? And you may say, I don't know, right? I'm in college. I don't know what I want my day to look like when I'm 35 and I'm an old man, right? That's how old I am. But you may know somebody that you go, you know what? That person's got something that's attractive to me. And I don't know what I want to do, but I want a little bit of that. And I think, Brett has a cool story in regards to essentially why he got into insurance and ultimately why we got into insurance. I mean, we believe a lot of the same philosophies and we share values, and obviously we came from the same mom and dad. But I could say the same for Rod. We just come from different parents. But at the same time, there was an industry that we sought out as a vehicle that is not sexy, right? Like property casualty insurance, I bet nobody in here thought, when I grow up, I want to be an insurance agent. Anybody? Right? I didn't either. Well, there's one. There we go.
Smart
Who
guy.
raised their hand?
But I think for me, I want to parlay into Brett and how he got into it. But for me, I saw an industry as a vehicle. I saw it that if I could stack some skills, if I could let time compound, I saw enough in it that long term it had enough of what I wanted out of that. So I thought that's a cool story, very relevant.
Yeah, and then also one of the big things for me, and I want to hear from Rod here. I think one of the biggest things if you left here, if I was going to give you one nugget, is mentorship. Like the most value you can extract in the next 5 years is finding good mentors. And I was blessed. I met Rod, who's my best friend, and he mentored me for the longest time. And man, I just listened, and I was a sponge, and I got a chance to work with somebody who had led sales teams that were doing significant amounts of volume, a lot of recruiting and high level, opening different markets in the medical field. And so I was attracted to what he was doing. I'm like, hey, this guy's doing it at a high level, but he's looking for something else, and we align on that. Man, I can learn from him. So in order to learn from him, what can I do to bring value? Which was I could just work my butt off, right? And I can be a sponge and I can be coachable. So I'd love maybe you to share your background a little bit more on why the insurance business maybe and why I had that. Because I mean, Rod was a very successful dude when we met. He had already obtained all of the quote unquote success that you want, pursuing your dreams. But the what was interesting and why we aligned was, he was missing something. It wasn't complete. And what I was looking for, and ultimately what Taylor was looking for at the end, was that thing that he was missing, and that's kind of how we came in alignment.
Yeah, what I think about is two things. Number one, you say to yourself, I'm chasing money, right? So you get out of college, and you're in search of, like you said, Taylor, immediately you think I graduated college. Where's my 6-figure offer? Where's my 6-figure opportunity? And I just caution that. I think that's one of those things that you have to really be careful of, because that could get you down in a lot of ways if that doesn't happen. Which brings me to my other thing that I was seeking out specifically was I knew my corporate days when it was good, it was good. When it was bad, it was tough. But nobody teaches you how to think, right? Nobody taught me how to think. Nobody was helping me learn why putting good things in was important. And I think back to, my days in business school. The course content was great. It made a lot of sense. I resonated with a lot of it, especially the marketing stuff, which was always my favorite. But what you learn in class and then what you find once you get out on your own and you get out on the road and you start pursuing it is two very different things. So for me, what I found really cool about our start, which was in the insurance industry before it was property and casualty, was we were introduced to personal development. I think it is super easy to pass over that, especially at this age. It's, you're looking to get done with what you're doing and then get out on your own and, kind of find your way. And I can't stress enough the importance of just being curious about what it means to become more, right? Any job you come into, I think the risk is that you come in thinking that I'm decorated because I have a degree. And while that is very true, and it makes you extremely marketable, I just think without the tendency to know where to lean when you have a bad day in the subject of personal development, I just think becomes real tough. So I think for me, that was something that I learned early on, which made, and kind of when we all aligned on it and we knew that personal development would be a differentiator as we got into our industry. That's what rings true to me. Money is, it's all about money until it's not. That's kind of one of the things that I live by. And I think many people in this room will have this same type of journey, or maybe you'll have the same type of aha. You're hungry now to make money. Once you get out of school, you want to get in a role, you want to start making money. But then once you make the money, or you see there's a path to the money, then what? And I think that from there, when the focus can become you becoming a better version of you, I think then you make yourselves more marketable to become more, earn more, and so on.
Yeah, I was going to say, when I was sitting in this seat, I didn't even know what personal development was. I knew what professional development was, right? We had done all the different courses, and I've gone through all the different classes, and I understand career tracks, and that's what I'm trying to figure out. But personal development was something that I didn't understand what that was. No one really introduced that to me. And I still remember to this day. I mean, I was given a book called The Slight Edge, and I would highly recommend it if you haven't read it. And it literally fundamentally changed my life, because just like what Rod was saying, and that's just kind of what's kind of united us throughout this process, is you're going to earn the equivalent of your own development. Not how good you are in your trade, not how good you are in your craft, but how much you personally develop, right? And once I figured that out, and once that was shown to me, a lot of it we learned together, it was like, wow, now the world is just fun because we can play. It's not necessarily about what industry. It's not really about what job. It's not really about what specific career. It's about me and becoming more. And if I become more, I can attract whatever it is that I'm looking for. And now I can take my degree, my knowledge, my skills. Right. And I would say even just the degrees, we see a lot of times people have pedigrees as far as where they came from and the jobs that they've held and their experience. And I think it's the exact same thing. It's you're relating your future experiences based upon your past accomplishments. And although that's important, it's not the actual accomplishments. It's the skills that you learned to get the accomplishment. Does that make sense?
It does.
Right? Like if you're looking at a resume, we look at resumes, but candidly, it's infinitely more important with how somebody shakes your hand. It's infinitely more important as if they look you in the eye. It's infinitely more important than the music that somebody portrays when they're talking to you, right? It's not what you say, it's how you say it. These little soft skills, these little important subtleties are intrinsically aligned with someone's ability to be able to perform. And so one piece of advice I would give you is don't overvalue the bullet points on, the resume you make with ChatGPT. Don't act like you haven't done a ChatGPT resume. I did it, by the way. Because it's at the end of the day, the person that's looking to make that hire is looking for specific skills of why those accomplishments were made, not necessarily just the accomplishments themselves.
Yeah, and I think something you may be thinking of is, and as employers, we hire people, we interview a lot of people, and it's fun. I think one of the things why we started the company and why I was so attracted to what they were doing, because I was younger than them. If you can't tell, I know I have the most grays, but I actually am the youngest one up here. And, you know, it was less important for me. You know, you go back to the mentorship thing. I just wanted to underscore that. It was way less important for me what I did, right? And it was way more important of who I was learning from and who I was doing it with. And at a young age, if you can do that, right, we call it success compression, right? If it takes somebody 10 years to do something, how do you do it in 3? Well, you do that by really getting people that have already gone to the mountaintop and climbing with them, right? And finding ways to add value and having good energy and being a student and being curious and being humble and being coachable. And you just can't replace that. And you have the unique opportunity when you're young because that time really compounds, right? And you're able to take the pay cut. You're able to take the lesser salary for the right fit. You know, we talk about it in sports all the time. I get a kick out of it because when you're coming out and you're playing sports, you're in high school, what's every athlete want to do? Well, they want to be able to go get the biggest offer. Hey, Florida went and offered me, and they're an SEC school. So how do I say no to, how do I say no to Florida? They're the biggest offer. And, you go there, you don't play very much, you transfer after a year. Next thing you know, you're at 5 schools in 4 years nowadays, right? So why? Because you weren't thinking of fit. You weren't thinking about mentorship. You weren't thinking about who can I go learn from. Who's the point guard that I want to shadow that's going to actually teach me the game and develop these skills that are actually valuable. So I'm pretty passionate about that.
Yeah, I think that's so valuable because, the pressure that you feel getting out of school, at least that I did, was that like, man, whatever job or whatever career or whatever it is, that's kind of like assigned to my family, my parents, everyone that I made it, that I did it, and that, it's just, there's this a lot of pressure on you sitting around the family dinner table and being able to say, what is the job that you got, right? Like, it's just important. The package, the this, the that, the benefits. And man, if I could just tell you, it does not matter in the beginning. It just doesn't matter. It's so insignificant. It's the skills, it's the mentorship, it's the experience. Because that's the only equity you really have. What you want is you're probably not going to be at the same job forever. So what you want is you want transferable skills. You don't want to start over every time you leave somewhere, right? Like that's not a good strategy. So are you really after the package? Are you after the pedigree? Are you after the ability to be able to, not flaunt, but be able to be proud of what you have? That's great. But that's not the game, right? Like, know the game you're in. The game you're in is trying to get around the right people and the experiences and the skills, because ultimately, if you change careers, if you get another opportunity, if you get recruited away, right, there's more opportunities. You want to be able to say, every single day that I worked at this particular place, I learned something that's going to help me in the next season. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I sorry to jump you. Yep. I think I'd underscore. I think most people, when we interview them, say, I want to come to a place where I have growth opportunities. I'm capping out at my job, or I want to come to a place where I can feel like, every year I'm developing, right? That in concept. But what that looks like in actuality, sometimes that's different than people's perception of what growth means. I think growth can mean, hey, you do more than what you're paid for at first. You bring more value than what you're paid for at first. And over a long period of time, we have a philosophy that time either promotes you or exposes you. So in a short period of time, that's very transactional. You may say, hey, I don't want to do more than what I'm paid for. That doesn't sound like a good deal. But over a long period of time, if you do more than what you're paid for and you're in the right fit and you have great mentorship, then you'll be able to escalate your income beyond your wildest imaginations while also developing transferable skills. So I always think, hey, I'm looking for growth. I'm capping out, or I'm looking for more. Well, sometimes that more comes in a little bit different package than you perceive it, but over a long period of time, that's what you're looking for, right? So I think back to the Slight Edge, the book that Brett mentioned, that allows that compounding of these little subtleties of personal development, the stuff that you're doing every single day to work for you, right? Rod, I saw you.
Well, and I want to kind of just compliment that. What kind of skills are we talking about, right? I mean, think about the ability to influence people, right? You talk about, right, if you're going to get into business, you're going to at some point probably be tapped to lead, right? You don't just get tapped to lead without having certain skills. The skill of developing influence, the skill of building rapport, sensory acuity, or for lack of a better word, attention to detail, right? Knowing that when you're talking to somebody, I can tell if you're dialed into what I'm saying because I'm watching your eyes, I'm watching your body language. So things like that, when we start talking about skills and we start when you quantify that over a long period of time, the role that you find may not be the role you end. I always say, what's in it for me, right? What's in it for me in this role? What can I stand to gain in a role that I may not see myself in long term? Is using every opportunity that I have to do what I'm there to do, but then what else can I do? Where else can I look to add value, even if it's not what my primary reason for being there is?
Right. And
when I start thinking about, when I hear you guys talk about skills, and you start talking about interviewing, and I've been able to interview at a high level throughout my medical career, those were the things that mattered way more to me, was how someone etiquette, we call it etiquette, right? How you sit, how you engage somebody, Brett said, how you shake a hand, and then your ability to tell a story, right? Your ability to take points and tell a story to where someone else is now interested in what you have to say. All those things, I think, are kind of the culmination of the stuff that you might not be thinking about now, but are infinitely important. I think about our first 5 years in business together. I mean, 13,000 your first year, or your, whatever, right, something like that my first year. And people say, well, why in the heck would you do that? But if you look at the things that we did back then, whether it was etiquette on a conference call, whether it was learning how to cold call somebody, whether it was being in a high-level meeting where you were probably the least qualified to be there, but you gained what you could gain through that, we received millions of dollars in income that we would just realize a little bit later in life.
Right.
A little bit later in our business life, because those were the skills that we were able to stack back then.
How about delivering bad news? Right? You're in business. Well, that will happen to you, and you will get the people in this room that get really good at delivering bad news and do it well, you will do very well. That is a high level skill set. The people in this room that have the ability to have conflict resolution, to have uncomfortable conversations, these are real skills that you don't necessarily learn until you get into the situation, you get to do the thing, right? You can sharpen the axe all day long, but you got to swing it. And when you start to swing it, you realize, oh, this thing's heavy. Oh, my hands are starting to callous. Oh, wow, I didn't expect this, right? There's just certain things that when you get beyond these walls and you start getting after it, there are going to be these things that pop up. Man, I would just encourage you, lean into those. Every single one that pops up that makes you uncomfortable, every single one that you go home and you're like, man, how about not liking a boss? All of us are going to have a boss that we just don't like. Your ability to be able to perform when you don't necessarily enjoy the person that's giving you direction is a huge skill set, huge skill set. So most people shy away from that and they're like, oh, I got to go find something else. Well, like what he said, personal development would say, wow, what an opportunity for me to actually deal with this friction, because this is probably not the only time this is going to come up, right? So little subtleties and little changes. The other thing I wanted to leave you guys with that was helpful for us and was helpful for me when I was on this journey coming at it was somebody had taught me about 3 different types of ways you get compensated. And we've had this dialogue a lot lately. And I think this is important as you look at different opportunities and you look at what you're looking to do. We think there's 3 ways you can get compensated. Number 1 is income. It's money, right? It's actual real compensation as far as what shows up, as far as benefits, income, salary, bonuses, all that. Second is time. It's autonomy. It's lifestyle, right? So that is a big one, right? If you, that especially with the way everything is going now, there's a lot of different variances between what that lifestyle looks like. And at first, you might not have time, freedom, and autonomy because it's, you're just getting into it. But what does it look like over longevity? What are you after? Because that's real compensation. The ability to be home with my family, to take a vacation whenever I want to, the ability to be there for my son's basketball games, to do all the things without second guessing anything. That's true compensation right there. So you can't look over that. That's very important when you're looking down the road as far as beginning with the end in mind. And then the third one is equity. And equity is a big one, right? Equity is there's multiple ways that you can earn equity within a company. You can be vested over the long period of time through some sort of corporate benefit program. You could start a business. You could do a joint venture. There's a lot of ways that you can do that. But those 3 ways are kind of the North Star for us as far as how do you quantify what this opportunity is going to actually mean. Like what Taylor said, if you just look at they're going to pay me this salary, it's a very distorted view of what the true compensation of that. And the last one that I'd say is really important, which will inherently lead to all three of those, is just the experience that you get. I tell these guys all the time, like, we have a blast. We just got back from Hard Rock this last night. We had a huge President's Club dinner with all of our top agents, and it was an incredible night of fellowship and fun. But man, I'll tell you right now, if I met somebody that was doing 100x what I was doing in this business, that we were doing in this business, we all line up and say we would go work for them for free for a year, because the experience that you'd get working for free would be worth way more than what it is at the level that you're at. So the ability to gain the experience from other people, like Taylor said, don't underestimate that, because if you can get in close proximity to a flame, to a fire, inherently you're gonna start to burn. Inherently you're gonna start to burn. It just automatically happens that way.
Yeah, and guys, I want to open up for questions here in a second, but I think specific to what you guys are saying too, you might wonder, well, why insurance, right? And I think all the things that we just prefaced and framed in that regard is that we saw those three needles that he mentioned moving in the property and casualty insurance space over a long period of time. So if you have an interest in the space or you're looking at different stuff, I would encourage you to look at it over a long period of time, right? I know for us, property and casualty is an industry where you come in and it is a slow build, meaning that, you don't come in and you're not making $500,000 on year 1, 2, and 3, right? It's a grind at first, but it's a really cool grind because, I don't know if anybody on our team's made less money the year before than they did the next year, right? Because it's this slow escalation of income as you're around for a long period of time, but you're also stacking these different skills that allow you to be more valuable. And then also the quality of life aspect was important to all three of us to say, we have something we'll talk about and we'll get into. It's, absolute income, what's on your W-2, right? Versus, relative income, right? What are you doing to earn that income, right? Are you trading time for money, or do you have leverage in whatever you're doing, to meaning that you can continue to work the same amount of hours or less, but by being better or having leverage, you can earn more and have more time. And I think
that's a huge one.
That was an entryway into property and casualty insurance. And as all the philosophies and stuff that we've shared in the last half hour that we'll get into is just, let me plug into a vehicle that has those things that's good enough, right? And you say, oh, well, property and casualty, that's an aging industry. That's not very sexy. At a cocktail party, it's not the coolest thing in the room, I can tell you right now, right? But we think it's really cool in what it provides us as far as an opportunity to, become more and go on the journey that we've gone on. So
I think it's important too. I mean, the age of who we're attracting now is starting to get younger and younger and younger. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and some of our newer people that are joining the team.
So. I think it's the best kept secret. I think insurance, if it's not the oldest industry in the United States, it's the second oldest behind banking, and it's got a cool opportunity. And I think we undersell it as an industry to young people. Mm-hmm. And I know we're on a mission that we have some awesome young people that have been attractive to kind of what we're doing. And we really created a vehicle for us. I mean, flat out, right? We weren't like in a whiteboard saying, hey, I wonder what young people want. We were young people and we were like, man, what do we want, right? We want to grow. We want to create a vehicle we can develop in. We want to make more money every year. We want to have fun and work together and integrate our life and our work, right? Not work-life balance, but work-life integration, right? In a world that is remote with all the different tools at our fingertips, I think work-life balance can sometimes be a dream that's very hard to attain, especially when you're young. In anything, if you're young, you really want to be out of balance, right? Because you're in the phase of your career that you just can't get enough experience. You can't get enough exposure to new skills and to repetition. So I certainly want to give a chance for some Q&A, but hopefully that gives you guys a glimpse of kind of who we are, what we're doing here, some of the things that we believe in that may have triggered some questions that you have either for us or about the industry.
It's super cool to see everybody taking notes. By
the way, that's a skill.
That is a big time skill.
We'll go to conferences and you can always tell. There's two things a mentor always that told us that stuck with us. Number one, always be in the front row. You can always tell how hungry somebody is. So we would line up early, get to these events, and we would always fight to get to the front row. And then number two, whoever takes the most notes. And so we would fight to see who could take the most notes, because those are two key indicators of somebody being highly successful. So anyway,
we'd go to conferences with we'd go buy, a mentor told us, go to the bookstore, buy a nice journal, leather-bound journal. And one of the times the question was asked, well, why would you spend $20, $30 on a journal you're just going to take notes in it. Well, because when I'm done writing it, it'll be worth millions of dollars. So that was all. We often compare notes from journals that we've had from years past. It's
Stacks of journals.
A lot of fun to go back and read that. So that I just wanted to acknowledge that. I mean, it seems like everybody's taking notes. It's really cool to see.
Well, let's open it up. I'm sure you guys would love to. I'd love to. Obviously, we'd love to get questions from everybody. There is. Yep. Go ahead.
We got the.
Let's do that.
Quick. Well, by the way, shout out to Lorenzo, man, crushing
to Lorenzo.
Setting up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm going to brag on Lorenzo real quick. So Lorenzo, our paths have crossed through multiple different opportunities, and he is one of those guys that learned, I want to be in close proximity, and so he runs the entire content department from a marketing side of our business. Super young dude, very polished, very professional, but he always does more than he's asked to do, consistently. One of the hardest workers in the entire company, and he's consistently over-delivering, and he is now in the rooms when we've done 3 mergers and acquisitions. He is in every executive meeting, and he's just listening, and he's just a sponge. And so, he pulled us aside the other day and said, man, I'm not here for all this other stuff. I'm here to be in the room when you guys are having these conversations because I'm learning. Because at the end of the day, he will go on to do something extremely big with his own company. We're doing a joint venture now, so he's a team member at Urban Young, but now we've opened another business and we're doing a joint venture. And the point is, I'm just, he's a great person to learn from too. I would talk to him afterwards. He's got real life experience of just doing more than what is required and getting in a position to get in the room to hear the conversations that a lot of people don't get a chance to.
He's probably all y'all's age.
Yeah, and he doesn't need the job. I mean, his YouTube page has 500,000 subscribers, right? Like it's his Instagram's over 100,000 followers, and it's all organic stuff, nothing paid. It's super cool to watch him, but it is. You're a perfect example of what we're talking about in real life, and appreciate you, man. So if you don't mind, man, share your name and
what's your
fire away
major?
the question.
Samir, finance.
Nice.
What kind of insurance does your company sell?
Anything with a roof and wheels, man.
You
I
mean
like that.
like
Never
car
heard that.
insurance?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So basically personal and business. So any business, any property within businesses, all these buildings, you have insurance on it, property and casualty, and then obviously you have your home, auto, flood insurance, all that stuff that your everyday, home buyer and consumer buys.
Health and life also.
Oh, health. That's what I was asking.
Yeah.
Cool.
There you go.
Very
Cool. Yeah, very cool.
Cool.
Very cool.
Yeah, and anybody that hasn't been introduced to that business, it's a business in which you sell a product one time, and every time someone renews on it, you get paid over and over and over and over again. So one of the mentors that was influential in my life said I would never do anything unless it had residual income attached to it and leverage. Residual meaning I get to do something one time and I get paid over and over and over again over a long period of time. Leverage meaning I can multiply my efforts. Right? It's not just about me. I'm earning from being able to multiply my effort, and we do that through team building. So, great question.
Yeah, and by the way, to further that, I mean, it's as simple as if you don't get paid very much on each policy, right? But it's about lifetime value of the customer, right? So you say, hey, somebody pays $2,000 for their auto insurance, you get 10, 11% of that. So that's $200 in revenue to the agency. But the likelihood that person's going to stay for 5 to 7 years, right? And you do that over and over again. So that's kind of the business model that we're in. We get paid as a distribution point for these insurance companies, and we get paid a small commission on the first year, and then every year that they stay with us as an agency.
Ethan Mack.
What up, Ethan?
Ethan Mack, IB student in integrated business. Awesome. So you talk about building your business, or building your book of business, of course, and those residuals you get over time. What's a key thing that you guys focus on that staying in contact with your customers to make sure they're renewing with you and you're making sure to get those residuals?
Great Man, what a good question. Woo! That's a high level.
Hope everybody
question.
heard that.
Man, can I take that one?
Please.
Man, what do you guys think the most valuable thing is in business? Relationships. Very good. Yeah, I couldn't agree. I couldn't disagree. I think attention. I think attention's pretty important, and I think obviously trust and relationships, as those are caveats that are very important. But at scale, we try to do a good job of when we have the customer's attention, we meet and exceed expectations and continue to deliver. And that comes in simple ways, but we've done it through team building, man. We've done it by building a team of people that share values, that are excited to do what they do. And we feel like all those things that we're talking about, the music, the energy, all that stuff comes out through customer experience and interaction. And not only delivering on whatever it is, right? If you're a current customer and you call me to swap out a vehicle, great, we can do that for you. But what else is going on, right? Is there anything else we can help you with? You know, how's your day? Is there something I can tie back from your past experience that could make you feel comfortable and that make me feel like we know each other and there is a relationship? Because there is. So I think simply just taking care of people, but you know, when you have their attention, making sure you're maximizing it and you're delivering valuable to them. So.
One of the things we did, we just 2 months ago we do it's called an annual summit, and it's our leadership summit. So we take the whole company off-site for 4 days, and we do a blowout event and a lot of development, a lot of training, a lot of bonding, a lot of culture. And one of the things we came out of that event was we wanted to create. We set goals for each department, and then each department got together and they decided what are the KPIs, which are activity metrics, key performance indicators, that they need to do at what velocity in order to get to that outcome, that goal. And our relationship management team, which is essentially customer service, they decided that outbound dials were an activity metric that would move the needle on some specific things that they were set for goals. Right? We get a lot of incoming calls. We probably get 250 calls a day just on service calls, and maybe more than that. But it's easy to take all the inbound calls and get busy with the busy work. But instead of making an outbound dial to say, "Hey, how are you?" Right? Those outbound dials matter, right? You had to take effort to do that. The inbound dials, they obviously want something. Does that make sense? So
they have a problem.
So
something's wrong.
Right. So one of the ways that we did that is we set a 2-month goal, and we track every call through a CRM. So all the calls that are made are through a technology platform that we've built. And if we get to a specific goal, the goal that they made when they left the summit, they decided what it was. We said if everybody meets that goal, we're going to take everybody on a cruise in March. So we're still there. We got to the end of November, but we've made over 1,300 outbound dials from this. We've gotten over 130 Google reviews as a result of it. We had our highest production month for that team that we've ever had last month. And all these things started to happen as a result from making sure that we stay in touch. But one of the biggest things was making outbound dials instead of just taking inbound dials.
Great answer.
Great question.
So it's anything. It's anything, right? So we saw Google reviews for somebody calling to cancel their policy, but we did a good job canceling their policy. So they left us, but we did a great job canceling their policy.
And they gave us
and so our team member asked, "Hey, I know we're not able to keep your business, but would you do me a favor? Would you fill out this Google form if we've done a good job?" So the point was, it's any reason. Rod calls it a benign touch. Just give me an excuse to call you. Give me an excuse to make a dial. Give me an excuse to make a connection, and that's good because the goal is to stay in touch. It's not to, I don't necessarily have to have a reason for calling every single time. Sometimes we're making up reasons to call people. The reality is what we're trying to do is stay in touch with the client.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite thing is the benign touch, and I love your question. It's like, well, I really don't have an update for you. Well, good. Let me just call you and tell you I don't have an update for you, and then maximize that touch with you just because I'm on the phone telling you I don't have anything new to tell you, right? So
I just building relationships, right? That's important, right? Now it becomes I know Rod. Rod takes care of me. Man, he took the time out of his day to tell me he doesn't have an update. Right? That's valuable.
Well, and two, you think to yourself, a customer service team. How many times do you think of customer service as people that are there to solve your problems? Right? They're always there to receive the phone call. Tell me a team that's programmed to make outbound dials, right? And follow up or any.
And you know what that's done for the team? They've been fired up because they feel like they have control over their outcomes and they have influence because they're on offense, not defense.
They're working on.
That's been the coolest secondary consequence.
I just think about those skills, right? I mean, we talk about skills. We walk our talk, right? So it's like instead of just sitting at a desk and taking calls and taking grenades and just getting pounded by clients that are needing something or potentially unhappy, what skills can we equip or teach our team to pursue by making outbound dials? And that list has been, we got to tell the story about Anna. I mean, we've got
we have and I see the question in the back, Lorenzo, so we'll be right back there. We have one of our vice president of relationship management. I'll try to make it quick. She's 16. She just turned 16 years old. She's been working with us part-time since she's 15. She does all unlicensed work. And she's so good on the phone, and she's so sharp, and she's so hungry, and she gets like 4 Google reviews a day. Like, she's got this massive workload,
And
but she's learning these skills at such a young age on how to build rapport over the phone in a short period of time, take somebody from where they're 9 out of 10 upset to 6 out of 10 upset to hopefully get them a 3 out of 10 upset, and then potentially position for an ask at the end of it or a follow-up call. So it doesn't go without saying that, these things aren't arbitrary as far as, how many Google reviews or how many policies I can sell them when I talk to them, but it's more about the skill that you would need to do that. And I think that's what's really cool. So hopefully that answers that question in the back. So
when you were first starting up, when you were building your initial customer base, how did you gain their trust versus like the bigger players in the industry?
Oh, great. That's a good question. You show up every day and you do your best, but it's difficult. I mean, there was a lot of accounts that we just didn't win. We weren't good enough too. We were new. And so, but the cool thing about in this business is they have to buy it every year. They're going to buy it or they're going to buy it from somebody, right? And when they buy it because there's a renewal date. It's one of the only businesses in the world that's like that, and it's beautiful. So I know one of the accounts that personally I wrote, it took 4 years to write it. I didn't get it, then I didn't get it, then I didn't get it. But we didn't burn a bridge. We left on good terms, asked for the opportunity to compete again the next year, and slowly over time, and we've had that account for the last 8 years now. Yep. So in the beginning, it was tough. It's always going to be tough. Whether you're brand new and you're competing against somebody that's been in the business for 5 years, it's always tough. It's just over time you'll gain traction, and that equilibrium will change, and then you'll be the person with the experience.
And I'd add to that. Everybody knows pull-through marketing, right? Tiger Woods holds up a can of Coke, and everybody says, well, I'm going to go buy a can of Coke, right? Well, the business we're in is push-through marketing. So to your point, and to kind of compliment Brett, we had to be visible. We call it playing in traffic. We had to be in the rooms where the competitors were that were winning all the business. We had to go through the reps. We had to get beat. We had to get bloodied, and then we had to, and more times than not, we just had to continue to be around. And then through being around, I think there was I think we developed a little bit of traction on maybe these guys do things a little bit different. Maybe they look at things a little bit different. Man, they didn't get it for 3 or 4 years, but he's still here. Like, maybe there's something that I should explore. Yep. And I think that's a good underscore to what you're saying.
Yeah, and also, here's another skill set. Learn your value proposition, right? Do you know your value proposition? You specifically, right? A business is no different. It's just a collection of people that all have a unified value prop. And so a lot of time the big players, what we found is they were clunky. In order to move, it just took so long. They couldn't do it, right? They're like a big cruise ship. It takes a really long time to move that thing. And we were like the speedboat. We could do a lot of things that they couldn't do. We could be very responsive in ways that maybe they just weren't set up to do at scale. So we were trying to find all the small little crevices where we could add value that potentially the competitors, they just weren't going to be able to do that. So that's just through discovery and listening to the client, asking good questions, asking them what the pain is. A lot of time we assume what it's going to take to earn the business. And the best way to figure that out is you can ask people, hey, what do you like about your current provider? What do you not like about your current provider? Hey, if we were able to get this to this number, is that good enough for you to move? And they might say, no, it's not. You're going to have to come in 20% lower because I love my agent, right? But you don't know that unless you ask good questions. So one of the biggest things for us early on is, understanding what we were really good at and why that was different than some of the guys that were bigger than us and had been around a long time, but then also just asking good questions when it was time to meet with the client.
Yeah, it's gold. And I also think simplicity, before we take this next question, a lot of people, it's about building trust. And a lot of people say, under promise, over deliver. But I just believe just set expectations and meet them and do it over and over and again. Set expectations, meet the expectation. You build trust, you win the business. It's no different in a relationship or a friendship. Set expectations and meet them.
Hi, so I'm in the integrated business program. So when I was hearing you guys talk about your company and the experience that you received from building up your company from scratch, I also wanted to touch a little bit on the sacrifices that you had to make. So I understand perhaps losing time from your family and your friends, or maybe it's hitting a little bit more of your mentality and really sits there and really has you fighting for something. So I wanted to really talk about more so the financial aspect of it, from building up a business from scratch, because, you know, I feel as, you know, as we go further through the years, younger people struggle to start something up themselves. So can you just talk about a little bit more about financially how you were able to build up your company from that scratch?
God, that's such a good one, man.
Yeah.
Such a good one. Hey, we have a mantra, not without pain. Anything that you want to do that is worth fighting for is going to take a lot. And the bigger your dreams, the more you're going to have to fight for them, and the more you're going to have to embrace the suck. And there's no doubt. I mean, there are battle scars that run deep. And, you know, Rod came from a really big career and had a nice lifestyle. And, you know, he would tell you that, you know, he had to downsize a lot in order to do that. And that's very difficult with a family. You know, we were younger. My wife, I remember my wife I was in my family's, my parents' house, and my wife's pregnant, and I'm in my childhood bedroom, right? And my wife looks at me and is like, how long are we going to be here? And you want to talk about some pressure? That is pressure. And so there are a lot of, and any one of us and any one of these guys could tell you the same things, but I guess if I was to distill it down, I would tell you it might take you 5 years to be successful. It might take you 10 years to be successful doing that, but it'll take your whole life to be regretful. And if you know what you want to do and you're excited about it and you're built with passion, realizing that money is just a means to an end, and as long as you can figure out a way to get it done, when you get to the other side, it's just so worth it. It's just so worth it. So, I mean, I lived at home for a while when I got done with school. And then I had a buddy who was able to rent me an apartment that was way inexpensive. I can't believe how much I paid for that while we were there. So, and, you know, Rod has a story and Taylor has a story, but we figured it out. But more importantly, we kind of just, like on the back of this suit right here, if you flip it up, it says "see it through" on the back. And every suit that we get, it says "see it through," because we made a pact early on that, hey man, if you don't quit, I'm not quitting. And so "see it through," sit was something that, you know, kind of tied us together to say, you know, it's going to get dark and there are going to be challenges financially, but we're in this to the end, and we're in it together. And so I would just tell you that it takes what it takes.
And practically, you know, be okay with being broke. I mean, flat out, right? I mean, don't go rush out and get super nice things. And I think, you know, I was fortunate enough to start a business when I didn't have any money and I didn't know any different. And I think, you know, Rod transparently had to come the other way, right? And it's way harder to come the other way once you've made some money, you have a family, you have a mortgage, to have to downgrade that lifestyle for the hope of something more in the future. And so as you're getting out, if you have the ability to be young and be nimble and drive the old car and, you know, buy the used books and clothes and all that stuff, as long as you possibly can stand it for the trade of pursuing a future that you actually want. And the cool thing is it's about money until it's not. And I can tell you, you know, our incomes are much higher than when they started, but it's still not about money for us. It's just, you know, there's just a difference in lifestyle now, but it's worth it. So it's good, really good, really good question. We probably have time for one or two more if we go quick.
Right here.
Hi, I'm Brian. You mentioned a lot how your job experience and how you valued it a lot and how it developed your skill sets. Excuse me if I'm wrong, but I didn't really hear much or hear you talk about your college experience that much. I just want to know how your college experience developed your skill sets overall, and do you value job experience over college experience?
That's a good question. It's assumptive to think that they're binary, and they're not. I think they work hand in hand. I think you have technical, professional knowledge, and then you have real grit, life experience. And so we call it learned knowledge and activity knowledge. You can't just go out and do the thing. You have to learn about it. And you can't just go learn about it. You got to go do the thing. And if you really want to be successful, you learn about it, then you go do the thing, and then you go back to the learned knowledge, and then you go back to the activity knowledge, and you toggle back and forth, right? Until you've learned it and you've mastered it. So I think my college experience was one of figuring out how to complete something, was one of figuring out how to have an objective, have a long sales cycle, right? A semester is a long period of time, at least it was for me. There are a lot of challenges that come with that. I missed this class, I got to make this up. Do I have to drop this course? Is it going to hurt? There's a lot of things that went into that for me that helped me figure out how to get over a lot of obstacles and get to a goal. As far as the technical knowledge is concerned, I was a hospitality management degree. So I've written a lot of hospitality accounts, where that's been helpful for me in my craft. But as far as what we do every day, I learned much more from getting into the activity after school than the actual technical information I learned in my major, because I didn't end up going down that track, if that answers that question. So.
Yeah, and I would say even both. I mean, I think I would agree with everything you just said, and same for me is just the ability to have an objective and do what it takes to complete that objective, and all those different stuffs that you guys are in. But I think neither, and right. I think job experience, the way I look at resumes and interviewees, is secondary. It's helpful, but I want to know what skill sets they have that allowed them to complete college. I want to know what skill sets they have, and that may just mean grit. That may mean toughness. That may be the ability to persist under stressful environments. That's a skill set, right? Mm-hmm. That's attractive, but it's not necessarily the degree I'm attracted to, and it's the same with job experience. Somebody could have a really cool resume, but I'm looking for what skills they have buried within that experience that can be now valuable in the role that they're going to be in, right? Because the past is not always a predictor of the future, and I think it's just acknowledging to make sure that the skill sets and things that they learned in the past are things that they could actually apply and use in the future. And I think, especially college, big fan, you can leverage this experience to the max. You're not only learning skills, but you're always a part of something. You're part of a university. You're part of a network. Yep. And I think the network part for me has been really powerful as I get older, realizing that this experience was not lost on just technical skills or not technical skills. You're a part of something. You completed something, and it's a fraternity and a network that you'll have forever. So I like this is a mastermind, right? Like, this is very valuable. People like you guys have people coming all through here. Like, this is like, people pay a lot of money to go to events like this and hear from people that have done it and ask questions, and that's a support system that you have. And so to me, that is the real, I value that more than anything, right? If I can get in a room and we can have discussions on high-level stuff and I can learn from other people's experiences, I don't care if that's on the job or that's in a school scenario, that to me is more valuable than anything. So, great question. We have time for one more? One more. You're going to do one?
So just speak a little bit more on the financial aspects, and when you guys were first starting out, in that upstairs basement that you guys had, in those first years, were you looking at more in terms of did you guys have your day jobs? Were you guys racking up a good amount of significant credit card debt because sometimes the ends weren't making it? What was that realistically looking like for you guys?
That's a good question. Well, I'd say it's different for all three of us, right? We're aligned on where we're at, but we're all in different places in our lives, so it was different for all of us. I'll let these guys answer after. For me, again, I moved back home, and so I just reduced all my bills. I got rid of. We had one car, and at one point before Uber got expensive, I was Ubering to different places, and that was helping us to save money. But it was just really tight. I remember I did rack up some credit card debt during the time. I remember doing 3 balance transfers. So I remember racking up some credit card debt, and I couldn't pay it. But I learned, well, if I can transfer it to this card, it'll allow me 18 months with 0 interest. So I would transfer it to that one, and then I would pay it down, and I'd pay it down, and then it would happen again, and then I'd transfer it to the other card, and so it bought me some time. But I remember, with me and my wife looking at each other like, man, what are we going to do? And there was times where it was fine, and then there was times where it was like, this is crisis mode. We have to do whatever we got to do to get that down. So.
So at what point did you make it business expenses and not personal expenses?
Yeah, so from a business perspective, we had low expenses for the business, and the capital that we needed to do that was very small. So the business was always fine. It was just personally for us, we were putting all the money back in. And the entrepreneurial game is, you usually are putting more money. I mean, our first employee that we hired was making more than the three of us when we hired him. So, you're putting more money back in the business, more money back in the business, more money back in the business. But we always knew that the more money we put in the business, the more growth, we were actually getting paid, but we just weren't creating income. We were getting paid in equity. So we were growing the business, which inevitably was growing our equity. It's just that we weren't extracting income from the business. So that mindset was huge for us. So as long as we could grow equity and we could survive, the equity was always going to be worth way more than whatever income we could pull from the business.
And from an income perspective, we didn't take a living wage until probably the 5th year.
Yeah.
With 3 mouths to feed, that was a decision that we made, and that we all, like Brett said, it was different for everyone. I had just downsized an entire life, had cars and nice cars and things that would not be conducive to that sort of reality. But once we got through that downsizing and kind of that reevaluating what was important and where we wanted to get to, that career had gotten me to a point where I knew this could be infinitely greater than that. So while it wasn't easy, and there were a lot of tough conversations, I relate to Brett a lot. It's like, how are we going to do this? We accumulated some credit card debt, but I think sticking in it, Taylor said, just keep going, because they're, especially if it's something you're passionate about and something that you've vetted and something that you've got some proof of concept already. It's just a matter of you either succeed or you quit. And if you keep going in something that you're passionate about and you've vetted, I believe it's always about money until it's initially about money until it's not. So.
Yeah, and living wage is different for everybody, right? Rod's living wage was very different than mine and different than Taylor, because he was in a different season of his life. So it probably took me personally maybe 2.5, 3 years before I was okay.
Thank you.